So as a board gaming enthusiast, as a dungeon crawler enthusiast, we see a lot of different models in terms of board game implementation. The actual layout of the dungeon and how this supports the narrative of the game. So from that perspective, as a player, as an experience, what do you prefer? Revealed dungeons or discovery-based dungeons? Now, a revealed dungeon, a great example of this would be Descent 2nd Edition, or dungeon crawlers where the map is laid out ahead of time. And it could be a small bite-sized section of the map, or of course it could be much larger in scope. But essentially it is pre-populated. There are elements that you're aware of, like this is a room with a door. I might not know what's in that room and in that door. I'll find out in a moment. But I have a general understanding of the layout and perhaps where most of the monsters are going to be. I find the advantage from this type of setup, and there are some times when I prefer it. And again, Descent 2nd Edition works very, very well with this. It speeds up the economy of the game. I get to explore certain elements. I kind of have an idea of where I need to go for the end game. And in making that game a little bit faster, from a rules perspective, that allows other elements to be brought in, maybe additional treasure types or monster respawns or certain activations. You can keep the game reasonable and experiment in other areas. On the opposite end, and I do tend to favor this a little bit more, it's a little bit more in the spirit of that classic dungeon crawler, but I think the rules need to be much tighter and the implementation needs to be very, very focused. The hidden dungeon, this type of dungeon where you might have the entry room and a door, and then you literally build it as you go, and the players get to explore it as they go. Now, the advantage here, of course, is the mystery, the fact that I don't know how big the dungeon is. I mean, as the overlord / necromancer / player going against the other players, I've got my quest book or my map or my rule book, and I see the scope, but they don't really know, especially if it's a big, big dungeon. Like, it could go to the other side of the table. And there's always that feeling of mystery in that. Without giving any spoilers, one of the dungeon crawlers, you have to release an undead spirit. And in order to do that, and of course fight the undead spirit, free her spirit, you need to find the 3 pieces of the amulet. So you know they're scattered about the dungeon. Now, while that's happening, of course, monsters are spawning, minions are spawning, overlord cards are being played. You're in the dungeon. You go left, you go right, you go left, you go down some corridors, you go down some steps. You're at one point. You're beginning to wonder, like, hey, is this a dead end, or are we on track for the quest? Maybe we should go the other way. Or maybe we should split the party up. Never split the party up. Never, ever. Well, as best you can, but maybe you're on a timer. So there's this constant feeling of good stress in a way, like, what's going on? Plus the mystery of, like, okay, we're doing well. We've got some time left on the timer. We've got the treasure. We've got the loot. We're ready to fight the end boss. You know, way back in the beginning, there was that other door that we didn't kick down. And there could be some items there. There could be some treasure there. There could be some loot. So maybe we should go back and grab it. Like, there's a lot of dialogue. I love the hidden aspects of never really knowing how much to explore. Now, on the rules side, this does slow things down. I mean, this is one of the main things back in the day, Descent 1st Edition, populating the dungeons, just from the perspective of keeping the flow as an overlord. I want to have my setup optimized. So you kick down that door, or you break down that door, I've got to look in the quest book. Okay, 2 zombies, 2 spawn points, put out a table and a locked chest, draw out these cards to put next to it, and put these tokens. That takes a little bit of time to do. So ideally, I want to have an optimized system if I can, where I've got, I lay out the monsters, the tokens, the furniture, the cards in little groups, in little clusters behind my screen. Or if the game doesn't come with a screen, I flip the box over so you can look at the artwork and put that behind there. Because it does kind of slow things down if I got to go through the pile of monsters and be like, okay, here's a skeleton here. Wait, that's the wrong one because it's with the bow and I need the sword skeleton, and utilize that. It also takes away from the possibility where the game could be overloaded if you have these other rules that are implemented. Character rules and things like that. The fact that you are exploring and building the dungeon, it could make the game a little bit longer. So I feel like if it's a revealed as you go type setup, the rules do need to be a little bit tighter. But there are merits to both. Given my preference, I prefer to explore it. Also both as a player, that idea where you can mess with your players, right? I mean, this is the great thing. As a dungeon master in a traditional role-playing game, I'm never out to kill my players. I'm not that kind of DM. I'm there to facilitate a story together. We're here to build a world. You have complete freedom, complete open choices, and I'm not going to meta game it. I'm going to play it out as it is. But when we jump into Descent or we jump into Hero Quest, I am there to smash you. We have a social agreement. I'm going to do my best to save up my cards and really smash it and deliver certain things. And there's a lot of interesting little tricks that you can do. So they kick down that door. I've got my zombies ready to spawn. I've got my trap tokens. I've got the furniture laid out, but I'll look at it for a little bit. And I'll look at the tiles and I'll look back. So they're like, why is Fritz looking? What is he looking at? Or I'll look at some other part of the map. I lay things down. I'll look at some other part of the map. Why is he looking over there? Did some hidden door open and now waves of monsters are on their way? I mean, there's a lot of interesting capital situations that you can utilize to really pump up the game. So I prefer that, pulling that narrative in. Look, we agreed to it and you gave me permission to try to just stomp you. I'm going to try and do that. That I feel like a build-as-you-go dungeon brings. And that's interesting. But I do also appreciate for shorter plays that aspect. Okay, Fritz, because this is what we started with the vlog, but we got off a little bit. Which system do you think is better? Now, I'm a dungeon crawler enthusiast. If you've been following my channel, I've said I'm done. I'm good. I don't need any more crawlers. And then you guys make a recommendation. You know how this goes. You make a recommendation. I check it out. I'm like, wow, I didn't know this title existed. Watch a few more YouTube videos, and next thing you know, I'm got it ordered, ready to go. And I love it. But from that perspective, I think there's room to build out your system, your collection, your titles, your stable, your ecosystem. So even exercising some impulse control, which I don't have, looking at it from the perspective, if I had 4 dungeon crawler titles and I did 2 and 2, or 3 and 1, or somehow balance it out where it's like some that I can play essentially based on timing. Physically, how much time do I have to play? If I'm at a gaming store or a club and we have a hard start and stop, hour and a half, 2 hours, I'll bring a revealed dungeon where everything's there. If I have more time from that perspective, or it's more open-ended, then I'll bring one that I get to reveal as we go. So looking at, I find having both eventually really plays into and answers a question that I ask: how much time do we have to play? How much time do we think we have to play? And utilizing that criteria for the selection.